So, welcome to the beginning of day 4 for this online version of the Catalyze Peacebuilding Pilgrimage, Hodu Ljubljesa Drugačima. And today we are excited to kind of continue the shift that started during the second session yesterday and talking to Paula Green, moving towards more of a constructive, conversation with peace builders and about peace building work and how we can start to cross these narratives. So I think for a lot of people, the first few days, it's heavier to work to understand different narratives. How do we empathize with them? And that's a lot of the more challenging work. But then it's a lot more of a joy to start to connect with people that are doing the work and to start to partner in unlikely, collaborative efforts with one another to actually work together. So starting here, well, yesterday started as well with Paula, but then definitely now with our local peacemakers. We're excited to have Mevludin Rahmanovic with us today, who is from Sanski Most. So you heard Paula yesterday talk about Sanski Most and her relationship with Vahidin Omanovic, and Vahidin and Mevludin are the co-founders and co-directors of the Center for Peacebuilding in Sanski Most. And Mevludin, I remember the first time I came to Sarajevo, I think it was maybe day 2 in Sarajevo, whenever I visited. So I'd spent day 1 with Orhan hearing some really tragic stories actually from that region, from Prijedor is where we had visited. And it was just like, I was left in this place of how could anyone do peace work here? After hearing personal stories of the trauma that individuals and families and entire villages went through. And then that next day, I met with Vahidin and our Mevludin here with us today. And I was deeply inspired, to say the least. And all of a sudden, it was like, these are the individuals, as Paula Green was saying yesterday, these individuals are the ones who show up. They're the most courageous, most incredible people that you'll ever meet. And so Mevludin inspired me then and continues to inspire me. I just wish he didn't live so far away, but just he and Vahidin, it's been like, should we move to Sanski Most? It's just like they have developed after so many years just a momentum where now they have younger people working with them and have developed some staff around them in order to continue lots of their incredible work. They do peace caravans and peace camps and so many other things. Traveling around Bosnia, giving youth the chance to meet with one another is so important here, where youth are oftentimes isolated from where everyone is isolated, but oftentimes youth don't have the opportunity to meet with one another. And so Mevludin's personally touched my life. His story, I don't want to share too much of it because I want to give him the chance to share a little bit of his story briefly here with us, but a survivor as a child of the war in a particularly brutal area. And then through that, work through this process to all of a sudden now be peacemaking alongside those of other groups. And so very much motivated by his Islamic faith, was an imam in Prijedor, is that correct, Mevludin? For about 10 years.
Yes.
So I'll let it there for now, but I'm looking forward to listen to your story and kind of about some of your work and the things that you most have on your heart to share with us today. And then depending on the number of participants we have and kind of the dynamic, we can make a decision whether to go in breakout groups very briefly or whether we'll just kind of do a question and answer time all together like we did with Paula yesterday. So feel free to already be thinking during Mevludin's talk about questions or insights that you'd love to kind of dive deeper on. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Mevludin. Take it away.
Thank you, Brian. So I have 20 minutes, right, to talk? Okay. So hi, everybody. My name is Mevludin Rahmanovic, and as Brian already introduced me, I'm professional peace builder, I like to say today. And I would like to say something about how I become a peace builder. And I always say it's not was one day I woke up and decided, oh, it's a nice day, I'm in a good mood, and I'm gonna be a peace builder. It's far away from that. So when war started, I was 11 years old boy, and as every other boy at that age in Bosnia, I was raised up as a small soldier, I always like to say, and I was always, wanting a war. I wanted to be a little partisan. I wanted to, fight Germans and everybody who's enemy. So when older people said that the war is about to begin, I was eager to have a war. I couldn't wait for war to start. And unfortunately, war started. And I have to say that I was one of the most luckiest and most happiest child at that time in my village in Prijedor, where I lived with my parents, because it's finally war. I can, go through the, trenches, and we had grenades falling down, and my father was crazy enough to let me go out of the basement when it's kind of not shooting all the time. So I would go out and collect the little pieces of grenades, and I was very proud of my little bag full of those pieces. So it was very funny, it was very hilarious. I was very happy about it because this was the war. you know you had grenades, you have shooting. All our neighbors would fit in small basement. We would spend nights there. But after a few days, me and my sister become bored because it was crowded. The basement was very small. So we forced my father, who was imam in that local village, to go back to the home. And that night, my father decided to go back, actually, to spend night in the home. But when I woke up in the morning, I found out that so many neighbors are in the house, that something is going on. Everybody are moving. They're all around my father. My father was laying down in the bed, so I didn't know what was going on. And then they told me that Chetniks came that night in front of the house, took my father out, asked for money, beat him up. He hardly survived. And I realized it was not that funny. I started to be a little bit scared. And then my father realized that we are not safe anymore in that house, and we have to go back to the basement. But then when we go back to the basement, we also realize that most of the neighbors are afraid then to be in that basement, because my father and his family are in that basement now. So before that night, it was 40 people in the basement. After that night, it was only owners of the house. It was maybe 6 or 8 people in that house, in that basement. And then my father didn't want to stay there because he realized that people are afraid. And since we are not from this region, we didn't have any relatives to go, and we didn't felt safe to stay in that house. My father thought maybe it would be better to move to another village, to another imam, that my father was friend with him. And since his house was not next to the mosque, he was kind of thinking that Serbs, which are Chetniks, which are Serb nationalists, this is how we call them, they would not, realize that this is Imam's house. So we collected some stuff, some basic things in our backpacks, went to that village. But when we arrived in that village, we realized that he is not in his house for the same reason. Chetniks find him there, they beat him up. So he is with his neighbor in another house. And it was already too late to go back home. So we were forced to stay in the house with the people that we have never met, that we don't know, in the village that is not our village, with people that we don't know. So it was kind of crazy time and chaotic, and basically we didn't know what to do. So we spent some times in that village, uh, just waiting, living with those people, getting to know each other. And man from the house, my father, that imam, the owner of the house, some of his relatives, they also realized that if Chetniks would come again to the house, they would, find them out. So they were started to hide in the bushes behind the house. But also one day they were in the house during the day, and again 2 soldiers came in front of the house, and they realized that they will come in. So my father and the owner of the house, they went out, and we just hear the shooting from the gun. And we started to cry, and to be scared. But then my father came in, and he says that those soldiers told them if they don't give enough money and a jewelry, they will kill them and send them to the god. So every woman and everybody collect the jewelries and the money and gave to my father. He went out. The soldiers were satisfied, so they came back and they said, we are not safe anymore to be in the house at all. So we will go now and we won't come back. We stay in that house, I don't remember now, maybe 5, maybe 10 days. But the Chetniks just started to surround the village to come in, and they even burned the mosque that was in front of this house. And one day we just got the rumors that people are going and moving towards the Prijedor, the city that we were living around, and we collect the stuff and the food that we had and started to walk towards the town, which was maybe 5 kilometers far from that village. And on our way, I saw so many people killed in front of their houses, next to the street. Also, in meantime, the imam of that village, in meantime, he disappeared. We didn't know where is he, and also his wife. So it was really chaotic and crazy situation, and we were just walking, and we came to we call it punkt. It was barricade in front of the city, and at that place there were buses and trucks. They were putting people inside and bringing to the concentration camp in Ternopole. So my mother, my sister, and myself, we went into that bus. They brought us to concentration camp in Ternopole, and it was really stressful time for me, and it was crazy. But I remember that the woman was standing there in front of this school. The school in Ternopole was turned into the concentration camp. I believe some of you know about it. And in front of that school there was a tree, and under the tree there was a table, and woman was sitting there and writing down all the names that were entering the concentration camp. And I can bet on my life that I recognized my teacher from primary school who was teaching me in my school, and I somehow felt that I might be safe. She's gonna help me. She knows me. She used to come to my house. She knows my father. She knows my mother. She knows me. She was teaching me for 4 years, but then she behaved like she never saw me. She just put that down our names. They soldiers searched our stuff, and then we entered the school, and then we were supposed to find a place in the school that we would stay there. And then I found some of our neighbors from my village, and I found other imams that my father and my family were friends with them. And then I realized everybody are there except my father. So I really started to cry. I cried a lot, and I just wanted to be with my father, to be safe, to be home. And the drunk soldier just came into this class, and he was yelling, and I can say that he was drunk. His eyes were really like red, and he yelled and he says, if I hear anyone cry anymore, I'm gonna kill you all. So that was moment when I stopped crying immediately, and I felt so petrified for my life, for life of my mother, of my sister, of everybody there. And we spent that night in the concentration camp. I always say that as I was lucky enough to spend only one night, but it was the longest and the hardest and the most horrible night for me in my entire life. I always say that that was night when I grew up, when I stopped being child. I don't remember after that even playing normally as every other child. Every child would seek, for toys, for games, for, just to go and play around. I stopped. I never after that. I don't remember that I even bought any toy. And also, I stopped crying. I don't cry anymore because I also promised myself that I will never give a power to anyone to make me cry. Because for me, at that moment, crying was a sign of being a weak, sign of suffer. I lost everything. I lost my father at that time, because at that time I didn't know is he alive or not. I lost my friends, I lost my toys, my house. On my way to the city, I saw my house burned down. So everything was left there and everything burned out. So I didn't have anything except a little backpack with, I don't know, few shirts and towels and things like that. So from there, tomorrow morning, it was July, I think. there was several big trucks and buses for people. They were just loading trucks and the buses with people. I end up in one big huge truck with serrade around it, so it was very hot. I remember that on they were actually transporting us from concentration camp in Prijedor in Ternopolje to, we would say it at that time, free territory in Travnik, and that road normally lasts for, let's say, 3 hours. That day it was lasted for, I don't know, 6 7 hours. It was July, it was very hot, we were under serrade. I remember even fainting out because I spent night crying, I didn't eat. So I remember my mother found somewhere some amount of water. She was, washing my face, giving me some cubes of sugar just to, woke up and to be there. So sometimes in the afternoon, the trucks arrived in Travnik, above the Travnik, the mountain called Vlasic, and we had to walk down there. So we end up in the city hall, not the city hall, the gym hall next to the gymnasium in Travnik. Somebody might even know where is that. And my mother realized that we cannot stay there, that, it was just thousands of people just laying down. So she had her aunt living in Zenica, which is near Travnik. And then she gave her last ring to the taxi driver to bring us there to Zenica town, to be there and to see is my father alive or not. So we end up in Zenica with my aunt, and unfortunately, when we arrived there, we realized my aunt, my uncle, and their daughter, and the 6 months old her daughter were living in a small, tiny apartment. And then three of us arrived. We didn't have any money, we didn't have any food, and they didn't have any money and any food. So it's seven of us living in a small apartment. We didn't know what to do. We were not registered in any humanitarian organization. We didn't get any support and food for the beginning. So my mother started to go to search for any kind of help and food and everything. And all the clothes that I have on myself, I had one sneakers, shoes, and I don't know, t-shirt, and something to wear. And I remember one day I went to swim on the river, and that was stolen from me. So I was wearing only, the speedos, the swimming suit on myself for a couple of days because I didn't have nothing else to wear. And I have to say that I was 11 years old. I was so angry. I lost everything, and I didn't know what to do with that. At that time I wished I'm a soldier. I'm grown enough to go and to fight and to liberate my town, my city. And I was also lucky. I always say that 20 days after we came to these relatives to Zenica, my father called. He somehow, by miracle, survived. He came to Travnik and then he came to find us. But then we also realized it's 8 of us in the small apartment. So my father tried to find any kind of apartment that we can be there. So we moved to one of his friends who was also imam in Zenica. And then we heard that our relatives from Kotor Varoš, which is our born city where we are coming from, actually, are also coming. The refugees are arriving. So my father went there to seek for his father, for his mother, and also for parents of my mother. And then my father came and he brought only his mother, and he said that his father is killed. And we also heard from my grandmother that the order of killing of my grandfather and half of the village at that day was ordered by our first neighbor who was Serb. The guy who my father grew up with. They were very good friends. We would visit each other every time. He would come even to Prijedor. And before today, when you say I went from Prijedor to Kotor Varoš, which is about 120 kilometers, it's nothing. But at that time, that was really a big thing. So they were very close that he would come even to visit us. So when we realized that he was ordering and he was involved into this killing, we just couldn't believe, because my father would always say that if everyone survived, his father will survive because he has this neighbor, that they are very good friends, they would care about each other, they will help each other, they would really good friends. For example, whenever I would go there for summer or winter holidays, my grandmother would never start to drink coffee before the mother of this guy wouldn't come to have coffee together. So we were almost relatives. We were not related anyhow, except they were neighbors, but we were very close and we would really, I don't know, they grew up together. So years were coming. It was war, 92, 93, 94. I was becoming a teenager. I was very angry, very pissed off with everything what happened. Whenever I would ask why this happening, why did we deserve this, the only reason and only answer that I would get it's because we are Muslims. So I was furious about that. Why do we deserve to be killed only because we are Muslims? And I also felt bad because when I was a refugee in my home country, and people didn't like us. Our own people didn't like us. Even kids, when I would go out and I would like to hang out with them, even if I would try to play with them, there would always be somebody to say, "Oh, you're a refugee. You were not good people. First you're a refugee, and then if you were good Muslims, you would not be, expelled from your home. This would not never happen to you." And they would hear this from their parents, whoever, I don't know. But all this, what was happening, and everything that I was just realizing what I have lost. I lost everything. I lost my childhood. I lost my toys, my friends, my life. I didn't have normal life. We were moving. Today I'm 40, and till 2011 I moved 20 times. It's all because of the war, and all that I have to blame were Serbs. And I like to say that at that time, if I had a button to press and somebody would say, if you press the button, all Serbs will die, I would do that. I was praying to have a button to kill all the Serbs. I was praying to be able to go and to do revenge for my grandfather, for entire my family, for my childhood, for my house, for my toys, for my friends. So many relatives I lost. So many my friends lost their fathers, their brothers, their sisters. So many my relatives were raped. So everything that I knew was suffering because of the Serbs. So everything that I had inside of me was hatred. I really hated them. I just wanted to do my revenge. I have to say, and I'm not proud with this, and I'm not sure will you share this recording with people, but I was even ready, I was collecting the guns, I was collecting, the weapon, and I was dreaming about when everything is done, when I'm able, I will go back and I will do my revenge. I will go and kill, I had named whom I have to kill. And because of this, also saying that because of Islam, because we are Muslims, we were killed, I wanted really to learn and to study and to know more about the Islam. So one of the reasons why I become Imam is because of that. I really wanted to study Islam. I wanted to see what is so bad about being Muslim. Did we really deserve to be killed, to be slaughtered, to be put into concentration camps, to go through all this because we are Muslims? So I end up in Travnik in madrasa, in school for imams for 4 years, and unfortunately, I always say that I was not lucky enough because it was still wartime. In the middle of the class, the shooting would start, and we would have to go and to hide into basement. And we would always talk about jihad, that would include, you take gun and you go and you fight and you kill your enemy, which is in Islam allowed. If you are attacked, if somebody is attacking and want to kill you, you are allowed to defend yourself. So with everything that I have learned, I realized that Islam is not bad by itself. I mean, I don't have enough time to talk about all of this. I will just make it shorter. So I returned. The war stopped in 95. In 95, my parents returned to Sanski Most, which is near Prijedor. And in 98, we already started to slowly return to Prijedor to organize religious life, to have Friday prayers, to organize funerals. I was finishing my school for imams, and sometimes when I would be on holidays, I would go and do Friday prayer there. And in 2001, my parents decided to return to Prijedor, and I together moved with them. I get my community. In that community, during the war, they were really like so many people were killed. So I returned there. I worked as imam during the Friday and Saturday and Sunday for the Sunday school for kids. and also started to work in primary school as a religious teacher. And the director, the principal, was the same teacher from my primary school. She was principal, she was director, and I didn't know really how to deal with this, how to approach her, what to do, how to deal with all of this. And I was still very angry, still wanted to do my revenge. And I always say I met my friend Wahidin, and we started to talk about what we had to do and how to deal with all this anger and everything what's happened. And then he says that he is a peace builder. And I was laughing because, who's going to be a peace builder and they slaughter us? Why? What to do? What kind of peace building? And I always say that we spend a year, maybe even two, talking and discussing how to put in peace all this what happened to me, and the fact that my faith allows me to fight, to defend myself. But at the same time, it talks about forgiving. It takes about giving a chance, and trying to, really do something about it. And it was long process. People ask me, what happened to you that you decided to be a peace builder, that you decided not to hate, not to fight? There is no certain thing, there is no certain action, there is no certain moment that I said, oh, I become a peace builder now, I don't hate anymore. But I have to say that my constant thinking and studying Islam, especially the life of our prophet, when he, for example, went to Taif, and he went to Taif to invite people to accept Allah as their God and to become a Muslims. And they attacked him with stones, and he hardly survived, and he escaped. And then the God sent an angel, and he says, "Your God sent me, and you just tell me." The Taif was in between of two hills. He says, "If you want, I will just with my wings put those hills like this, and they will disappear because what they have done to you." And then prophet says, "I'm not the prophet of punishment, I'm prophet of mercy, of forgiveness," and they just don't know. And this triggered a little bit and the stories in Islam like this triggered so many things in me, and I really started to think, what is this really about? The answer for everything that
And
that I have is
Mevludin, can you back up just a second? You were
yes.
just talking about the stories, but then the connection broke up. So you said these
Okay,
stories.
what you hear the last that I said?
So you talked about the hills, and he said, "I'm not the prophet of punishment, but of mercy." And he said these stories started something in you, and then that's where
Yeah.
the sound cut off.
Okay. Okay. And for example, another story when there was, and everybody knows about it, and this is also one thing that freaks me out. Everybody knows this, everybody talks about it. When it comes to the real life, when it comes to how we behave, we forget those stories, and we talk only about the fights. We talk only about the violence. We talk only about when we kill each other, but nobody talks about forgiveness. Nobody talks about that the biggest jihad. People ask me, do you want to go to jihad? And I'm saying I'm constantly in jihad, because our prophet also said there was one of the battles at that time, and he says this was an easy battle, and now we go to one that is even harder and even bigger. And his friends were, kind of petrified, and says, how come it can be bigger and harder than this? And he says the fight with your inner desire, with anger, with everything that is on you, that is the biggest jihad. And so many stories and so many quotes from our prophet that it's easy to fight with somebody, with people. And when you are angry, you just go and beat him up, you kill him if you want, you do whatever you want. But to overcome this hate, to overcome this anger inside of you, this is for me the biggest jihad, and I would say the highest level of being a Muslim, to forgive. Not only, I'm angry, you hurt me, and I want to do my revenge. Everybody can do that. And I always say also to the people, when we do peace camps, when I do any kind of talk of peace builder, I like to say that to destroy something, you don't have to be smart. you just press the button, pull a trigger, and you kill somebody or you destroy the building. To build up something, to create a life, to build up a building, it takes years of knowledge, of experience, so much money, so much time, and this is something that is worth it. And as I said, so many things that I was just realizing and taking out from religion, from life of prophet, from the holy book, from the history of Muslims, I realized that this is not the right solution. If we would just go in this cycle of violence, this never ends, and we would never have a peace. And this is not solution. So we have to be, if we are really believers, if we are really Muslim, if I want to talk about myself, if I'm really Muslim, if I really believe in everything that God says, and He so many times says, if you forgive, it's better for you. And when all this what happened to Prophet, he would always forgive. So who am I then to be somebody? How can I call myself a Muslim and then just seeking for revenge, just seeking for violence, and forgetting and ignoring everything that my prophet would say, everything that my God would tell me in the Holy Book? So, as I said, all this knowledge and all the information and experience that I was collecting, I just realized that I have to do something. I have to overcome my inner anger, my hate, and to do something about it. And when I talk about forgiveness, people would always complain, and they would even blame me and say, how come you can forgive? You know, your grandfather is killed, your uncle is killed, your this is killed, your, and I say, I forgive for pain that it's done to me. And this is what I cannot forgive for my grandfather. This is what they have to deal among them. But I forgive for the pain that has been done to me. And I always say, when you hate, if I hate Brian, Brian have no clue about. Brian don't give anything about it. He's not even aware. It's me who cannot sleep. It's me who's suffering. It's me who seeks how to kill Brian, how to revenge him, how to slap him, how to do something bad to him. He don't care. He doesn't care. He has great life. He laughs. He go hiking. He goes skiing. He sings. He eats. He sleeps. It's me who's suffering. So I didn't want, and for me, being a Muslim, it's not suffering. I don't want to suffer. I want to be happy. And what's done, I cannot go reverse. This is not the movie. You just press the button, you go back, and or again, let's try to different ways so we survive. So I really realized, and I felt so free without all this anger, without all this hate. I just felt it's okay. This happened. We have to do something, to help people to feel the same way, and we have to help everybody to understand that the violence is never a solution. So as a Muslim, as a believer, as a peace builder, as a human being, I want to do everything in my power to explain people that the violence is not solution, that there is a way to deal with everything that's happening to us, but we have to work on it. And being something good doesn't mean that you're going to be saved, or that this is the easiest way. Sometimes this is the hardest way. If you want to become a constructor or a doctor or the I don't know, whatever, you have to study a lot, and this is not easy. While everybody goes out and have fun, you have to study. While everybody are just talking, hatred and hate speech giving on TV, you have to be somebody who's going to talk peaceful things. You have to be somebody who's going to say about peace, about coexistence, about forgiving, and people will complain. People will call you the betrayer. People will call you, this and that. And I have to say, in 2004, for our work that we have already started, me and my friend, peace work, we realized that we need a legal frame for that. So we established Center for Peace Building, an NGO that would work for peace, and the local community didn't like us. The local religious authorities didn't like us, because as soon as you say reconciliation, they would go, with who? With those who destroyed our mosque, with those who put us in concentration camps, with those who raped our wives, our sisters, our daughters. This was the hard work. And for years we were ignored, we were even threatened, but we knew that this is the right way, and we still believe. But we have to work only after 4 or 5 years, we started to be accepted in our local community. We got on side even our religious institutions in Sanski Most. So this is the process that was really slowly growing up, and it's still growing up. We are still trying to prove that this is the best and the only way to deal with our past, that it was not so bright. We did so much bad things to each other, but if we continue like this, we won't change anything. It's just cycles of revenge. And if you go back in hundreds of years in this area, in Bosnia, in Balkan area, we just have war every 20, 50, 40, 100 years. We have war. We have slaughtering among each other. I think that we have to start to think about stopping it. And the way to stop is to sit and to talk and to recognize the suffering, to recognize the good and bad things that we did to each other. And this is the only and the best way to sit and to talk and to recognize, to honor the victims, to honor the lost one, and to say, should we do the same like our previous generation, or we will try finally to do something different and to have different results, which would be peace. So I think I even talked a little bit too much, but I have really had to kind of.
No, you were brilliant. This is amazing. And we're super grateful for all of that, for your story. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for, I mean, just kind of the tone of that, the pain, but then all moving all the way through to kind of share a glimpse kind of into the work you're doing now. It's just incredibly inspiring. So I think there's some conversations going on in the background, just admins and things saying we'd really, again, just like with Paula Green, we think it's probably best to stay here in the main group. I think people would love to have more interactive time with you. So for everyone, if there's any sort of questions that you have, feel free to put up, there's a little button where you can put up your hand, or you can type in the chat, or if there's a lull, you can feel free to unmute yourself and jump in with a question. My time sitting with Mevludin, I know you could talk with Mevludin for days. So we'll try to take advantage of time, keep questions short. And Mevludin, of course, will try to be concise. That way we can kind of keep the conversation moving. So go ahead and feel free to jump in with any sort of questions. Imam Arif Huskic.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, which means peace and blessings be unto you all. My brothers and sisters, I also greet you with the greetings that you are most comfortable with those words of greetings. First of all, I didn't know about Mevludin Rahmanovic, our Imam. I would like to thank him for memorials that he summarized and shared with us. I share his pain. I share pain with all ex-Yugoslavian people, not only my origin Bosnian people. That is one of reasons that I involved myself personally in America in interfaith work. About 22 years in interfaith community services, along with Muslims and non-Muslims from all religious backgrounds. I'm one of the war survivors in Bosnia and Herzegovina, among the many of others. Also, Serbs and Croats are survivors of the war, and we're building healthier community here in state of Michigan and abroad our nation and the world. The peace must prevail, and there is no peace without love. We have to build our mutual love, loving God, because God only is love. There is no love that can be in my heart, in myself, in my body to love you, Imam Mevludin, or to love anyone else, near kins or even brothers, if that love is not for sake of God. Now time, previous and now time in the world, you can see that even two biological brothers have a conflict among themselves, regardless of their faith, in all religions, that they even killing each other. There is no love for sake of God. That is only love because of biological brothers. But
Imam
what we
Buskic,
can do,
Imam Buskic, can you move towards a question? Because I'd like to keep hearing a little bit more
yes,
from Mevludin, because we have a
yes,
very
I
short
have a
amount of
question directly for Imam Mevludin. He is in Bosnia and I'm in America. I'm glad to work with him, to contact me somehow through you, share my email address with him, or I can say that if he like to extend his thought and, internationally, I would like to ask him to be part of Ministry and Spirituality Centers for Humanity and be with us on Friday's prayer at 3 p.m., which is in Bosnia time 9 p.m. or 21 hours at night. So that is my question for him directly, based on his story that he shared. And there is many Bosnian Muslims, Serbians, and Croats who have this kind of or similar stories to tell, so we can incorporate love of God in ourselves and move forward with the generations current and generations to come without sharing any hatreds. We can share hatreds any day, anytime, but we need to build love. I appreciate you, Brian, for this effort that you make for this Catalyze building, peace building event. And thank you for reaching out to me. I appreciate Professor Renada Fatima Abdibegovic for involving me here. I wasn't able to be with you yesterday and day before yesterday, but the time is, sometimes more than I
thank
want.
you, Imam Buskic. Thank you,
And
we
I
appreciate
look
it.
forward, Brian, to work with you as well in future and your team.
Absolutely, we appreciate you being with us.
God bless you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say basically, we at Center for Peace Building, we are open for any kind of cooperation. I have to say that my friend Wahidin, that we established the Center for Peace Building together, he even goes and comes to United States and teach at university in Blatterboro. So we already have so many people and friends and connections all around. So we would like even to connect with you and to give our part in this world. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Allah bless you, Imam.
Lynn, did you have a question?
I have a question about the youth work that you mentioned earlier. I was wondering, how do the youth who did not directly experience the wartime perceive the wartime, and compared to people who directly experienced it? And how do you do peace building with the youth compared to the people who went through that time?
It was very good question. We have, unfortunately, more nationalists and those who want war among those who are born after the war than those who are born during the war. Because those who were, as me, grown up and they have experience of war, they don't know how, they know how it looks like, And even though when they talk about how they again want to go to war and do this, it's really small amount of the people. But those who are born after the war, they're like me before the war. I wanted the war. I was young. I was taught, and in Balkan before the war, we would watch those partisan movies, and it was all about being a soldier, being a partisan, and fight your enemies. And during the war, this was very much used and misused, and as same as the religion and the national background, everything was used, to build up hatred and to put people into fight. So today, when we bring people, we basically teach them identity, and then we share with them experience of those who went through the war, and then we ask them openly, what do they think, how would they go, what they would do. And it's not easy. You cannot expect that somebody is changed over the night, but just talking with them and putting these thoughts about how it's looked like to be in war. And people think that this is a game, this is like you press the restart and you go back. But they have to understand, during the war, I'm sorry that I'm jumping, but during the war, identity was put in a danger. So during the war, people said, if the leader said, if you want to be a good Muslim, you have to go and to fight, and you have to go and to kill, and you have to, if you want to be a good Serb, if you want to be a good Croat, if you want to be good whatever, you have to go and to fight. We are trying to explain them using even religion. Sometimes we have people who are not religious at all, but building up their identity. The identity for us is a basic thing. So when they come into situation that somebody says your identity or whoever you are is in danger, that you know that they know that nobody can take this out from them. Because during the war, people were afraid that somebody would come, and people said, if you stay, for example, in Republic of Srpska, you cannot be Muslim anymore. You have to change your name, you have to do this, you have to do that. We have even people who say, I don't want to go to Europe or to United States because I cannot be a Muslim anymore, because they have different law, they are not allowed hijab, they're not allowing mosque, they're not allowing this and that. It's all about identity. So the basic thing is that we teach them that identity is something that nobody can take out from you. And then we build up skills and other knowledge about peace building theories and conflict resolution, prejudice, stereotypes. All this is needed for them to understand that the violence is not a solution. We also, for example, we have a group of ex-soldiers who are now who became peace builders. So we bring them in front of the kids or in front of the students, and they speak their stories. They give them and they share their own experience. We have even some of the generals. I think that you can find on YouTube. It's even translated in English. If I remember, I will send to Brian the link if it's online, so you can see it, about 3 generals who were generals during the war, but now they're good friends, and they go around the Bosnia and they speak about the peace. Unfortunately, they are not loud enough. They don't have power enough to talk more. But with this, we are just we are building up generation who's gonna be a peace builders, and who in time of violence, in time of when we have to decide, do we fight or do we sit and talk, that we will have generation who's gonna say, let's sit and talk.
That's incredible. Thank you, Mevludin. And there's like numerous organizations talk about this need to have this intergenerational conversation. So I think that was very much described there. And we had a question from Orhan in the chat saying Mevludin Serjan 2 days ago mentioned that Serbs somehow acted preventatively in their narrative. They did not want to experience what ethnic Serbs experienced during the Ottoman occupation and during World War II. As you know, when hundreds of thousands were killed. So he never excused those crimes, but he's trying to figure out the answer as to why. What do you think is that why, about why Serbs acted like that with the neighbors that you had? What was that force behind it, so that we can understand it in order to prevent it from happening again in the future?
I will try to answer this question. In Bosnia, in Balkan, actually, when we start to talk about the war and we ask young people, what do you want to talk about? They go to the World War I, World War II, 13th century, 11th century, and all these conflicts just go way, 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 way back. And then we say, okay, let's start to talk with this. And the problem, I would say, in the whole world, you have it everywhere, wherever you go. When we talk about the conflict, nobody talks about yesterday. They talk about centuries way. And this is the problem. And one of the most famous recorded, quotes of Mladic, you have it even today on YouTube, when he enters Srebrenica, he says literally, today we did our revenge for Turks what they did to us on Kosovo field. And this was 500 years ago. And everything starts with this. And the Serb nationalists, they were using what's happened on Kosovo field, even though Kosovo does not have nothing to do with Bosnian. But in Bosnia, we like to say, and historically, Islam came through the Ottoman Empire. And no, they call us Turks. It's a derogatory name for Bosniaks, for Muslims in Bosnia. They call us Turks. If you want, to humiliate Muslim in Bosnia, you call them Turks, and they will just use any kind of moment in history. And this is when I said that the history and the religion is pretty much misused, and the national background is misused during the war. And for example, Mladic and Milosevic, they were smart, they were genius, and they knew what to do. And we have books, we have movies, we have. When I was in school, we were supposed to memorize the song. How, and in the song, it literally talks about how the Turks were putting Serbs on a stick, and this is how they killed them. They slaughtered them. They were punishing them. And as soon as you start to call Muslims Turks, Bosniaks Turks, and you just say, oh, if you do this, this is what's going to happen to you. And just to say, Bosniaks use the same. We say this is 11th genocide on Bosnians, on Bosniak in Bosnia. Do we allow the 12th to happen or 20th to happen? And they say we have to do something about it. And today they talk, we have to study, we have to prevent, we have to write books, we have to do this and that. But when the time comes, this means let's go and fight. And this is the reason why we always say we have to sit and talk about it. And if we have to go to the first century, let's go back to the first century, talk about it. Because there is always some things in our history that we can use and misuse to raise up hatred and to make people kill. And it's always a narrative. If you don't kill, if you don't do this and that, look what's happened there, it's going to happen again. And it's always like that.
Thanks, Mevludin. There's another question in the chat from Nicole Reed. Paula Green spoke yesterday about how for some people the goal is not forgiveness, but an acknowledgement. I was violated, I was harmed, I have to live with it with boundaries for the rest of my life. How does this relate with your process in supporting others and processing their anger? The need for acknowledgement, the processing of anger, how you support people in that process.
We have so many cases. The most famous cases is Srebrenica, and we have a big fight about do they recognize genocide in Srebrenica or not. There is something in people that they have a need, and this is normal. I would say it's regular, it's legal to get credits. I don't know how to say right, to be recognized as a victim, to say, okay, yes, this happened. And I would say this is okay. And for the I wanted to, and how to relate to somebody's anger. You cannot control that. I cannot control my anger. I could not control that. Okay, today I'm not angry, or now I'm not going to be angry. It's a process you have to learn, and you have to understand, and you have to realize. And for me, this talking about and realizing how this happened, why this happened, just searching how it was possible that my first neighbor would come and order killing of my grandfather in the stable. How on earth this happened? I have to understand that. And when you understand, when you realize, it's not easy, but you understand. It's not justifying, but to understand why. Who told you what? And for example, what helped me, and I always share my own experience because I don't know what's going to work for somebody. I know what's worked for me. I met a Serb guy. He was my age. And then he says, my father was an officer in Serbian army. And I immediately was just stepping back, putting wall in between of us. And he says, my father was told that every Muslim, every adult Muslim man get a small piece of paper with a Serb name on it. And he's supposed to kill that man, that Serb. So this man kill or be killed. And when you realize that, when you hear, then you understand how and why. So it was a huge propaganda. how you organize somebody. And if you want to deal with any kind of genocide, it's always like that. It's propaganda. It's the same happened in Rwanda. If you read anything about Rwanda, it was the same. There are cockroaches, and they're gonna kill you. They're gonna do this. They're gonna do that. It's same happened in Bosnia, and we have to understand that. And only if we understand that, tomorrow, when somebody come to me and said that every Serb have a piece of paper with Muslim name, I know this is a lie, and I can go outside openly in the society and say, this is what I hear. Let's talk about this. Is it really true or not? And there is no other way. This is how we deal with this. This is what helped me to understand, and how to, understand, not to justify, but to understand. And this is how we talk with people. Sometimes it's still propaganda, but sometimes some things are true. So it's there is a timeline, what's true, what's lie, what's propaganda. But we have to be aware that those who want war, those who want violence, they will find a way. They're very smart. They will use anything to make people hate each other and kill each other.
Thank you, Mevludin. Jay, you had a question?
Yeah, Mevludin, could you let us know, were you able to reconcile with your primary teacher, and how did that process look like? Or if you can just give us a quick story on a reconciliation that you've had and some of the fruits that have come from that.
It's a tricky one. I had plans first to kill my teacher, and then I decided not to do. And then I was thinking a lot what to do. But then Paula Green actually worked with that teacher. She was her student, and she was talking with her. And I never openly talked with my teacher. She's still alive. She's now old lady. I don't think today it's worth it. But there is a moment inside of me when I realized I forgave her, but I don't really have a need to talk with her. I don't have to put myself go through this. For me, it's enough. But on another way, the neighbor of my grandfather, he's, how to call this in English? He's son of his brother. He found me on Facebook. He added me and he says, "Do you remember me?" He was just maybe 1 year old when I last time saw him before the war, maybe even 2. And I always like kids, and I played with him. I even changed his diapers. I was always there when I was visiting my grandparents. So he found me there, and then he says, "I would like to see you." So I met him twice, and I even called and spoke with his mother on the phone. They like to see me. They would like to see me. They would like to have me there in their house. So one of my goals as a peace builder is to go into this house and to sit and talk. And this guy says that he remembers my grandfather, and he remembered that he was a good guy. He's sorry that he's killed, that he's not there. And I assume, for example, we still are trying to find bones. We have only few bones of my grandfather and the rest of the people who were killed and burned out in that stable. I believe that they have some kind of information about the bodies. And one of the biggest steps of my reconciliation with this family, in a way that I would go and visit them and talk with them, would be to ask them about his body. Do they know anything about it? So I still don't have, I don't want to say courage, but I'm not ready to go and to face them. I forgave them for the pain, but to go there, to speak with them and to ask them about the body, I think it's gonna take some time. I like his, pictures on Facebook with his little cute daughter. I greet him for the Christmas, for the, religious holidays. We want we once met on a Jahorina for skiing. We had a coffee there. We just had fun. We didn't talk really. But I really would like to go, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to say I just go there and I speak and I say this and that. For me, this is not a peace building. I really want to see and hear, do they understand what's happened? Do they understand what and how do I feel? And his uncle was sentenced for life in prison in Germany. And then I don't know what happened. I'm also trying to investigate that, but he's released after 8 years. He was supposed to stay for life in prison, and and nobody talks about this anymore. He was one of the first person who was prosecuted for the genocide, but nobody mentioned that. And after 8 years, he's a free man. He returned, and this is the reason why we sold our house. That house was remain, it was not destroyed. We were always dreaming to go back and to live in that village, but after this happened and this guy was released from the prison, we just decided to sell our house because we didn't want to go there and to live there. I would not, and my father at that time, we were just sitting there talking. We cannot imagine going back and living in the house that your first neighbor is somebody who killed or ordered killing of your grandfather. You just can't, it's okay, I forgive you, but I just can't look at you every single day. So this is one of the goals, to go and see him. With my teacher, I think I'm done. I don't have desire to go and talk with her. She's an old lady. I would just bring her suffering and pain, and I don't know. And she doesn't mean nothing to me. But this neighbor, I think that I have to do something about this for myself.
Thank you so much, Mevludin. Aldina, did you have a question, a comment you wanted?
Actually, I don't have, Brian, thank you, a question, but I can give us short, just a short comments. So I will not take a lot of time. I want to, first of all, to thank Mevludin for his story. It was actually a second time that I'm hearing since I was last year also on this conference in Sarajevo when we had it. And it was also the same, even the second time, even more emotional for me, and I share with him this story. But I must say to him, I just have something to say, that I always mentioning the rest of the country. When I mean the rest, I mean Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia, and Kosovo too. We are all together in this, because actually what happened to me too. Maybe not shooting, but all my family is worldwide. They're all refugees, and I lived in fear too all time. And we also wanted to be a refugee, but my dad refused to my mom. And I also was a witness of Chetnik. They were even in my house, in my garden. They wanted to take a car of my father. He had two cars in that moment. And for example, I still remember that I was taken from the school, elementary school. I was 7 years old. Several times that my mom took me because we want to go in Germany, but we didn't because of that. He refused, he rejected, he doesn't want it. And all that time until now, we all sharing this. It's not just, in Bosnia was the genocide, was clear things, not just for sure to Bosnia, but to Croats, to Serbs too. But we also, as a Muslim in a Christian country, Montenegro, Serbian, also we felt, and we also burdened lots of things, because this was multi-ethnic problems because of 100 years or more of history. So we are sharing all this. I also always mention that not just here. I felt bad in one moment. I also feel anger, but here in Bosnia, when I hear this side of my community, and so that's why I was like a bit moved for it. Then I again that come, and I am in this master. Actually, I am done with exams. This program, multi-ethnic, interreligious dialogue and peace building, to heal myself, to get out all of me, that anger, because was in one moment that my sisters and brothers and their mom said, what happened to you? You were in Bosnia and you took it inside you, and you're now hate the people, and they're still our neighbors. Not all the people same, even that Serbs. So that was just a short. I also, my childhood is colored. Also, they destroyed not just the childhood in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Serbia, because we are minority in Montenegro. So imagine in Serbia how it was. We are worldwide, my families and everyone. So that's, sorry for my, I wanted to make sure, but sounds so sorry. And thanks Imam Arif that he mentioned it, that just that didn't happen to Bosnians. All Bosniaks or all Muslim on this region, whole region. I'm always, when I'm speaking about it, for sure, we cannot close the eyes of Srebrenica. It is something what is really pain to all of us, to all good people, human, no matter about his name, about his religion or what else. So thank you. Thank you, Mevludin. It was really, really emotional to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aldina. Adnan, did you have a question?
Yes. First of all, thank you, Mevludin, on very hard and emotional story. And I know your story, but this time was emotional also for me. And yeah, appreciate. And you are a brave man because you can publicly spoke about that. I have a question. It's connected about our discussions from these days before. How do you explain, like somebody who is the imam and know better, have better view in Islam, for example, from that perspective? But generally, my question is going on all communities, mostly in Bosnia, but in Balkan wider. Why you think is the reason why here our nationalism is very connected with the religion identity, and why religious even leaders or structure or organized I mean the churches and communities are almost 80% are nationalist in the same time, or why there is no enough peace activist among believers? I can say that's my view. Probably it's wrong, but it's somewhere I have a feeling that is a nationalism over here connected with the religious identity. And are you think also that was in Bosnia have elements of religious war or something like that?
It's hard to be smart and to give a right answer to this. I have two answers. One is very simple, and it's popular to be nationalist. It gives you votes, it gives you credits, it gives you power, it gives you money, it gives you followers, it gives you likes, gives you whatever you want. And you can see it. We just had, elections, and nationalists on the end of the story got the best vote. And if you are not nationalists, unfortunately, this is the situation that we have. Then you are against the government, then you're against the God. And this is the simple answer. It's just popular, to be nationalist, and gives you all of this. Another answer, I think that we fell into the trap. You have Serbian Orthodox Church. This was very smart, but I think for the religion it was very damaging that it's Serbian Orthodox Church. They connected the church and the religion, the Christianity, with the Serbian National Church. And then you have a Muslim community all around the world, even in United States, in Germany, all around. You have Bosnian Muslim community, you have Albanian Muslim community, you have, and this nationalism, I always say, and this is my personal opinion, it's the biggest trap to the humanity. And we had a discussion in our mosque with one of the imams. Every single Friday prayer, he would go and he would preach and he would start, my brothers Bosniaks, and we were freaking out. And then we asked him, invited him for coffee, and then we says, are you aware that they are Roma people? next to me sitting, and they're Muslims, they're not Bosniaks. Are you aware that we have Syrian people who came before the war to study, they got married and they stayed here? Are you aware that we have a Serbian guy, that we have Albanian guy, that we have even Americans here? And they didn't came to this mosque as a Bosniaks, they came to this mosque as a Muslims. But somehow it became trendy, and I think the Serbian Orthodox Church is leading, still leading in this, that we put a nationalism in front of everything. And as I said sometimes during what I was saying, you think that Milosevic was religious, that he would really care about that he was Serb or Mladic or whoever? No, they were very smart, and they needed the power. And to have power and to keep they become a nationalist. You have Dodik. He's maybe the best example how you use nationalism. When Dodik, and I believe that everybody heard about Dodik, he is a politician. He's now part of our presidency of Bosnia. His first speech, he says, "I recognize genocide in Srebrenica. We have talked about this, and they're our brothers and sisters." And everybody got crazy about him. Everybody loved him. 1 year after that, he changed completely. And now he's the biggest nationalist ever that we had in Bosnia. Why? Because this is the way how you get the power, how you get the likes, how you get the votes. Unfortunately, being an imam, being a religious people or person doesn't mean that you are safe of nationalism, of all of this. You are not even aware. You don't even realize that you became a nationalist. And I would say this is a disease. That it's very hard to find a line between being a nationalist or being just, I'm so happy that I'm in Bosnia, that I'm Bosnian, that I'm American, that I'm this and that. And then you have all these stories. As I say, it's very famous, it's very popular, and everybody talks about it. It's so present, it's so popular, it's so good to be a nationalist. Then you have everything that's there, and you don't recognize. I have so many friends who are working still as imam, and I always speak, why do you have to talk this way? You are not there as a Bosniak, you are there as an imam. Please speak as a Muslim, don't speak as a Bosniak. But, it's very hard to get rid of it, because we have generations who are raised up in this nationalism. And being a Bosniak is the thing in Bosnia. Being a Serb is the thing. Being a Croat is the thing. And to support why I'm saying this is the biggest trap, if you would ask people in ex-Yugoslavia 25 years ago, what is the most important, the biggest identity we have, they would all say Yugoslavs. And people would die for that, people would swear for that, people would fight for that, people would do anything for being Yugoslav. 15 years ago, it became embarrassing to be a Yugoslav. Today, when you say that you are Yugoslav, people laugh at you. Today we are proud Bosniaks, proud Serbs, proud Croats, and I swear, maybe not 10, but 20 years after this day, it's gonna be, ashamed to say that you are Bosniak or Croat or Canadian. I hope, it's my praying to this. But this is something that I don't know how. It's very hard to fight this. We would have to build up again identity of somebody who's a Muslim, who's true believer. I don't want to say even a Muslim, I want to say true believer, whoever you believe. When you believe in God, when you believe in whatever your God is saying, and as far as I know, every religion talks about peace, about equality, about accepting others, loving your neighbors, then you cannot be nationalist. Then you cannot hate. Then you have this love that's inside of you, and you just have to nourish it and to make it even bigger. So for us, somehow, unfortunately, I will have Brian. Sorry, I will just take maybe 1 or 2 minutes to say we have. So Center for Peace Building is not a religious organization; it's a very secular. The reason why I am peace builder is because of my faith, and this is what drives me. But our organization is very secular. But people in Bosnia knows that, and unfortunately, so many peace building and human rights organizations are people. As soon as they hear and realize that I'm imam, my friend was also imam, they have some kind of boundaries, and they put a wall. And they say, and people openly tell me, you cannot be a Muslim and peace builder or imam and peace builder. It doesn't come and doesn't fit together. For me, you cannot separate it, but for them, as far as they see it, and as far as they hear it from the newspaper, from the medias, from the portals, for everything, but politicians or everybody else are saying that the religion is a reason for hate, for fight, for this and that. And people would always comment, you know, as soon as you bring God in, there is a fight. This is what people are saying. And unfortunately, among the peace-building organization, human rights organization, we are not so popular because we are religious. And they say you cannot be religious and a peace builder because every religion, you know, requires violence, and you have to be like me, or you know, you are with us or you are against us. So this is how religion most of the time is perceived in the local community, in the society. So it's also on us, on believers, to change this perspective, to show with our own example. This is the reason when I said I cannot believe that somebody is studying Islam for years, for centuries, and then he goes and, you know, blow himself on the square, go and slaughter somebody, don't go and, you know, torture somebody. It just doesn't fit, because when we study, and our prophet is the main example how you should live, when we see how he reacted, and today the guy would talk about how our prophet would forgive, and he, you know, he really like wiping his tears, he's crying when he talks about his prophet, and after that what he does, he goes and slaughters somebody. Yes, this is something that I cannot understand, and this is something that we have to talk about and to raise up awareness, you know, to talk as a religious people, why is this needed, and why the nationalism is something that would really harm our relationship, even our faith and everything else. Sorry, Brian, I really just had the need to say this.
No, that was awesome and really important. I'd love to finish with one question just about kind of a story of impact, or a story from your work that gives you hope whenever you think back about it, something where you've seen some sort of transformation. There's another question in the chat kind of about the reaction of things being unpopular, maybe with like those closest to you, your family and friends. So maybe if even there's a story of things among those closest to you changing, that kind of shows you how this work can be transformative, to leave us with that.
I have so many, but I will share. I don't know how much is going to be important for me, but for you, but for me, it's really close and important. I have a friend who's imam, and he is really hardcore nationalist. And when he gives a speech, man, you have to hold your chair, you know, not to jump and, you know, to fight with him. As a human being, he's great and amazing, but he's full of hate and everything. And once we brought group of our people for one memorial to visit and to witness, because it was the day when this happened, and he gave a speech that was horrible, really. So I was not happy about it, and soon after that I really invited him for coffee, and after that we spent so many hours talking about it, and he always said, oh, you know, I know that you won't agree, but, you know, I think this way, this is right, this and that. And just a few days ago we had coffee, and he says, you know, maybe I was wrong, maybe I'm just, you know, taught in this way, and I don't know how to deal with this, but I can see that it's not right. I'm not saying that it's not right, that it's wrong, but I can see it's not right, you know, something has to be changed, but I don't know what, you know. And it's really, for me, it's big, it's important, because I know him for 25 years now, and I know that he's hardcore, you know, and he's been going through many things. But you know, when you see that something that you say and something that you do, it impacts people, somebody like him, it really gives me hope. I can talk about Serbs, I can talk about Croats, I can talk about whoever, but this was my friend, my brother, an imam who was really, I'm not proud of what he was saying. I didn't give up on him, and this is something that I always like to say, don't give up on people. It's easy to say, oh, you're a nationalist, I don't care about you. You are this, I don't care. Then we will be lonely, you know, we will be alone. So we have to accept. In my family, I have horrible people, in my surrounding, in my city, but we cannot just get rid of them. What kind of peace builder then I am? So we have to keep contact with them. And this was a result for me. This was something for me that it shows it's possible. But he didn't always say, my friend that I mentioned him in the beginning in my story, when I met him and he says that he's a peace builder, I was like, what? Peace builder? And most of people that I met today who are nationalists, when they met me, they laugh. When I say that I'm peace builder, they laugh. They make jokes and they make fun of it. Sometimes I'm hurt, but I understand them and I'm not hurt anymore. And I understand that it's a long way, for them to get to the point. I was there. It's the same when I have a child, and when I see my child, I have a funny story with them. So many, when they want to do something, and I know if they do that, they will hurt themselves. But I see desire in their eyes that they want to do. And sometimes I just let them do that, because I think this is also the way to build up trust towards me, that I told you you're going to hurt yourself. You still want to go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. But after you do several things, after 10 times of doing wrong things, when I tell you that's wrong, you're going to hurt yourself, you will trust me, And this is how we build trust. This is very needed. We have to build up trust, because today when I meet so many people and they say, I'm a peace builder, but you hurt him and you say something wrong to him and he just crossed you and he's never friend with you. And I said, but if we are peace builders, we have to find a way to overcome, our fights, something that bothers us. You did something to me, and if I just turn back to you and I go away, what did we do? Nothing. You just don't exist. And it's the same with people. Today we have young people and they say, oh, I don't care about what's happened. I just want to enjoy life. Or I don't care about the nationalists. And I say, you can be not to care, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So you can ignore things, but this does not mean they don't happen. They still exist. So it's better get involved, do something, than to just ignore things and create enemies. We have to create friends, even among those whom we completely disagree. And I think we have to make friends with nationalists, with Serbs, with Chetniks, with Ustasha, with Mujahedins, with everybody. This is the only way that we bring them to understand.
Thank you so much, Mevludin, and just thank you so much for this whole time. And we are incredibly appreciative of your wisdom and experience, of your vulnerability to share your story with us and all that pain. And it's definitely touched our hearts deeply, and we appreciate you. So just everyone, if we could just give Mevludin a round of applause and thank him. And then we're going to leave the call open for those that want to stay and discuss more with each other. And then we'll see you back here in about a half an hour to meet Radivoj Krul, who is an Orthodox priest. And we will have translations, so be ready for the English speakers to get onto the Facebook room to be able to hear that translation from Mirela. So we'll see you all shortly, and thank you again, Mevludin.